You wake up one day and the person in the mirror feels like a stranger. The roles you've played, the goals you've chased, and the conversations you have suddenly feel like a script you've been reciting for an audience that isn't there. Externally, nothing has changed. Your job, your relationships, and your morning routine are all exactly as they were yesterday, yet your internal connection to them has completely evaporated. The things that used to drive you simply don't register anymore. You might walk through your day feeling entirely detached. It's a profound dissociation, as if you are a ghost, quietly observing your own life from the third person. When this numbness sets in, the immediate assumption is that something has broken. Society, and your own mind, is quick to label this exhaustion as clinical depression, or to view the sudden lack of ambition as a personal failure. But this disorientation is mechanical. The identity that made all your past decisions no longer matches the awareness trying to live with the consequences of those decisions. Your life is not falling apart. The false self, the constructed persona you've relied on for years, is actively dismantling its own control structures because its expiration date has passed. Early in the 20th century, the psychiatrist Carl Jung gave this constructed identity a name: the persona. It is the psychological mask we wear to navigate society. We do not build this mask maliciously. We construct it in childhood as a necessary survival tool. We learn what behaviors secure safety, win approval, and guarantee belonging, and we weave those specific behaviors into a permanent identity. Over decades, this false self becomes so ingrained that it dominates our daily experience. It operates through the constant critical voice in your head, the internal narrator judging and managing every interaction you have. Maintaining that rigid mask takes work. It absorbs massive amounts of your psychological resources to keep the performance going. But awakening begins as a physical separation. The underlying consciousness outgrows the mask. The container cracks, unable to hold the expanding awareness inside. This identity crisis marks a threshold. Your consciousness is shedding a survival mechanism that is now much too small for it. We can map this architecture in the brain. The default mode network is a web of interconnected regions responsible for self-referential thought, the physical hardware for your ego. During awakening, this network destabilizes. The ego's rigid pathways loosen, and the brain's predictive framework temporarily crashes. Motivation vanishes because the brain's reward system is typically tethered to specific self-narratives, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we must achieve. When the DMN destabilizes, those stories lose their authority, and the old fuel sources of status and external approval stop registering as valuable data. This collapse also drives sudden, intense isolation. You are perceiving reality without the filter of your old mask, which causes relationships and conversations built on that old persona to feel incredibly hollow. In response, the ego fights back. Deprived of fuel, it weaponizes severe anxiety, desperately trying to pull you back into the illusion of control. The intense psychological pain of this phase signals a final act of friction. The ego is violently resisting its own obsolescence. This is why we distinguish this collapse from clinical depression. Jung recognized this state as individuation, a natural process where the psyche deliberately withdraws energy from an outdated identity to prepare for a more authentic structure. Trying to fix this state creates further friction. Rushing back to old habits or trying to force that expired mask back onto your face only delays the transition. Instead, you have to surrender to the limbo. Historically, mystics and philosophers have called this the dark night of the soul, a necessary period of unmotivated emptiness where you must tolerate not knowing exactly who you are. The psychological suffering dissolves when you drop your resistance to it. When you accept the void rather than fighting it, the anxiety gives way to a quiet, profound peace. Eventually, the internal critic exhausts itself and goes quiet. Without that constant noise, a new, unconditioned awareness emerges to finally direct your life. The emptiness and grief created the necessary clearing of space for the true self to take the wheel.